know you. I'm lost. I'm lost. I don't know where I am. I'm a sock in a washing machine, a strawberry and some jam. I'm a letter in a book. I'm the bubble in some fizz. I'm a pebble on a beach. I'm a question in a quiz. I don't know where you are. You don't know where you are. You don't know when I is. I don't know how you was. You don't know who I whiz. So find me. Find me. Ask me who I am. Get me out the washing machine. Fish me out the jam. Open up the book. Let out all the fizz. Let's walk on the beach and I'll answer your quiz. Then I'll know where you are. You'll know when I is. I'll know who you was and you'll know who I whiz. That. I did it. That is just a taste of Michael Rosen. I'm so honored and excited to introduce our first keynote speaker, Michael Rosen. Although I've never met him before, I've been following his writing since his picture book, I'm Going on a Bear Hunt, was published in 1989, now a classic and still in print 30 years later. My daughter was 5 and my son had just been born, and we read that book till it was ragged. Now I read it with my granddaughter. That book is only one of more than 200 books for children that he has written or collaborated on with others. Michael Rosen was born and grew up in London, the son of Polish immigrant parents who were teachers and encouraged his writing. He started writing poetry at 12 and kept reading and writing poems, learning from classic English poets. Then he went to medical school for a year and decided, no. He pursued English instead, and we're all so glad he did. He started his career as an author with writing a play, then worked with the BBC on Play School, on Schools TV, and in radio dramas. In 1974, he went freelance with poems about his childhood in the book Mind Your Own Business. He quickly established himself as a master of humorous poetry for children with books like Wouldn't You Like to Know? And Quick, Let's Get Out of Here. He was one of the first poets to draw from his own childhood and write honestly to children in the language of children. In his long career, he has won so many awards, and from many different countries. You Can't Catch Me won the Signal Poetry Award in 1982. And it was so popular, it was reissued again 20 years later. He received the Eleanor Farjeon Award for distinguished service to children's literature and was Children's Laureate from 2007 to 2009. He's received the Knight of the Order of Arts and Letters from France and the Japanese Picture Book Award, to name a few. He is currently Professor of Children's Literature at Goldsmiths University of London and has had visiting professorships at many different universities and colleges and received many honorary degrees. He was one of the first poets in the UK to make school visits across the country and around the world. But Michael Rosen is not just a productive and prolific writer and teacher. He's also an outstanding narrator and performer. He has a YouTube channel, Kids, Poems, and Stories with Michael Rosen, with over 500 videos, and he told me 142 million views. Wow. And he's done countless radio and TV programs and currently has Word of Mouth with BBC released. And of course, he's won many awards for video and audio work as well. He is one of the best-known figures in children's literature as a poet, a performer, a broadcaster, and a scriptwriter, and I'm so excited to hear him speak today. Let's welcome Michael Rosen.
It's my new job, moving furniture. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sylvia. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, everybody. I'd like to thank the Congress Committee of IBBY Italy for inviting me. It's a great honor, and I really am extremely grateful. It's a wonderful surprise, very nice thing. And many thanks for the wonderful hospitality that my wife and I have had since we've come to Trieste. And could I wish Della Passarelli well? Can we all wish her the very best? Della Passarelli, thank you. Children often ask me, where do ideas come from? Where do they start? And I quite often tell them a story, which is that I was out with some boys and girls by the River Thames in the middle of London. And I was out with them there, and we have a railway bridge that goes over the River Thames. And I don't know whether you know, but there's a rule or a law, or maybe it's written in the Bible, I'm not sure, that if 30 children stand underneath the railway bridge and a train goes over, that somehow or other they all know to say in unison, "Wah!" I don't know where it comes from, where it's written down, but all children know this. So I was with these 30 children all screaming, and their teachers, and I said, actually, hang on a moment. If you come over here and put your hands on the bridge, on the wall holding the bridge up, you can actually feel the train. You can feel the rhythm of the train. And the moment I said that, two thoughts came into my head. First of all, that's just like a little phrase that, you know, I don't know whether you know, but writers, particularly poets, you quite often think of us as going about and looking at nature and being inspired by nature, but quite often what we're doing is just eavesdropping. We're just listening out for things. We're just listening out for things to try and steal, actually, just to steal from you. But on this occasion, I stole from myself. I heard myself say, put your hands on the bridge, feel the rhythm of the train. I thought, oh, maybe I could begin a poem like that. So I was like a scavenger. I often think poets are scavengers, like crows, yes? So I scavenged myself, and as I had that thought, I thought of the marvelous poet that we've had in Britain, the late, great Benjamin Zephaniah, who's been an inspiration for me and for many people, wonderful, passionate advocate of human rights and freedom and anti-racism, wonderful poet. And some words from him came into my mind. Benjamin Zephaniah, I once had to ask him on a radio program where he wrote his poems, and he said, I don't write my poems. I said, oh, what do you do? He said, I make them up when I go running. And then when I get to the end of the run, I know the poem off by heart. I said, oh, that's amazing. So there's me standing there, and with the 30 children, if you're still with the picture, we're all standing there with our hands on the wall. And this thought came into my mind about Benjamin running along, making up a poem in his head. And I thought, well, I won't do the running bit, but I'll get on London Underground, what we call the Tube. I'll get on the Tube, and I'm still there with you see, I've still got my hands. I'll get on the train and see if I can make up a poem just like Benjamin Zephaniah does. So I sat on the Tube, and you can imagine it. I was sitting there going, hands on the bridge. I don't know what that looked like, but anyway, never mind. Poets just carry on. So, and by the time I got to the end of the Tube journey, just like Benjamin going running, I had a poem in my head, and the poem went like this. Hands on the bridge, feel the rhythm of the train. Hands on the window, feel the rhythm of the rain. Hand on your throat, feel the rhythm of your talk. Hand on your leg, feel the rhythm of your walk. Hand in the sea, feel the rhythm of the tide. Hand on your heart, feel the rhythm inside. Hand on the rhythm, feel the rhythm of the rhyme. Hand on your life, feel the rhythm of time. So I thought, well, sorry. And then, so Benjamin did say something else, actually. He said, if you make up a poem in your head, there's a way in which the shape of it is somehow, people just know it, and they can just sort of do it back to you. So I thought, right, so that's the Benjamin Zephaniah challenge. Away you go. No, never mind. Okay. All right. So it was a bit harder than that. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do what I do in schools. and we're talking about change, that sort of thing. So what I'll do is I'll teach it to you line by line, and you'll do it back to me, all right? So I'll say a line, and you say it back to me, all right? So here we go. I say, hand on the bridge, feel the rhythm of the train. You. Okay, so it has got a rhythm, all right? So that got a little bit wobbly, all right? And you can do the gestures, all right? You can imagine your elementary school or kindergarten teachers, all right? Maybe some of your secondary teachers, so you don't want to move your arms. You can move your arms, I promise you, even the men here, okay? Particularly dads, okay? So I'll do it one more time, and we'll see whether we can keep the rhythm. Here we go. So I'll go. Hands on the bridge, feel the rhythm of the train. Hands on the bridge, feel the rhythm. Hands on the window, feel the rhythm of the rain. Hands on the window, feel the rhythm of the rain. Hands on your throat, feel the rhythm of your talk. Hands on your throat, feel the rhythm of your... Hands on your leg, feel the rhythm of your walk. Hands on your leg, feel the rhythm of... Hands in the sea, feel the rhythm of the tide. Hands in the sea, feel the rhythm of the... Hands on your heart, feel the rhythm inside. Hands on your heart, feel the rhythm inside. Hands on the rhythm, feel the rhythm of the rhyme. Hands on the rhythm, feel the rhythm of the rhyme. Hands on your life, feel the rhythm of time. Hands on your life, feel the rhythm of the time. We're ready. I'll count you in. I'll help you as we go along. I promise. Here we go. With a 1, 2, 3, 4. Bridge. Hands on the bridge, feel the rhythm of the train. Window, hands on the window, feel the rhythm of the rain. Throat, hands on your throat, feel the rhythm of your talk. Leg, hands on your leg, feel the rhythm of your walk. Sea, hands in the sea, feel the rhythm of the tide. Heart, hands on your heart, feel the rhythm inside. Rhythm, hands on the rhythm, feel the rhythm of the rhyme. Life, hands on your life, feel the rhythm of time. Again, hands on your life, feel the rhythm of time. You knew it. Benjamin was right. Benjamin. Yes. So, maybe I should ask, has change happened? Has any change just happened? Well, have we discovered anything about ourselves? Have a little think about that. Have we discovered that? Have we discovered maybe that we've all got something in common? We've created something here in the room that is unique, something that's only happened here in this particular kind of a way, all right? And also we've perhaps discovered that we have, well, maybe there's more to unite us than divides us. That we have that rhythm of life, those rhythm of things around us. Maybe we discovered that, maybe that involves a change. I hope so. Now then, to the talk. Can I begin saying that you gave me quite a challenge? A big challenge, in fact. You asked me to talk about how writing, especially my writing, can be a driving force for change, whether that be on a personal level, social level, or political level. So I'm going to confess a difficulty. I'm not only a writer, but as you heard, I teach on a master's course on children's literature. And I don't actually teach very much on how to write, because there's a good reason for that. I'm a really bad editor. I can't even edit my own writing, let alone anyone else's. So what I do is mostly on the critical side. In one module, we talk about the theory and practice of children's literature, and in another, we supervise students, who are mostly teachers, who read books with their pupils and study how those pupils respond to books. To do this, my students, the teachers, develop ideas about this matter of what we call reader response. Do children's ideas on, say, for example, gender, empathy, racism, change if a teacher exposes their pupils to certain kinds of books? So that's the problem. Why? And if so, how? So this leads us to look closely at what people have said about what is known as reader response criticism. We find ourselves confronted by various problems. So in everyday speech, we talk about books, say along with films or songs, plays and shows, as containing meanings. We use phrases like in the film or in the book. We sit talking with friends about how, say, that character hated him, or how that wasn't fair when this character did such and such. Now, these ways of talking make sense at the time we're saying them. But then when we listen to children talking about books, we soon discover that they don't make one meaning from a book. Of course they don't. Just like us, they see different things in it. Now this may be obvious, so let's have a look at something. Let's try something out. Let's see whether we can put up a poem. I'll ask very kindly to the technicians to put up a poem called I Too Sing America. If it comes up, it comes up. If not, I'll read it to you anyway. But somewhere in the depths of the computers, there should be a poem. No, never mind. Oh, there is, yes. Thank you. Molte grazie, tecnicio. I just made that up, sorry. So let's do the poem. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes. But I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. So I'll tell you what, just spend 30 seconds talking to the person next to you, looking at that poem, have a little chat to yourselves, just what you think about that poem. There you go, away you go, 30 seconds. There you go, anything you like, just chat to the person in your language, not in English, that's all right, in your language. Okay, did you notice something? Can't stop you now, you see. There you go. Did you notice something that the power shifted from me as I read it, or if you prefer, from the author on the page, but when I read it, the power shifted to you. You spoke about that poem, you were in control. That's where I would argue the change happens. Not necessarily on the paper or even when I read it, the change started happening when you started thinking and talking about it. I've now got some questions for you that I don't know the answers to. Here we go. The first one is, who do you think might be the I in the poem? I have thoughts on it, but it's not the definitive thought. Chat to the person next to you. Who might be the I in the poem? The I meaning ego. Yes? I, moi. Yes? Not that I. Who might be the I? I too. There you go. 20 seconds on who might that I be. You might give that person a name if you want to. Does it say whether the person has a gender? Male, female, undecided? Pronoun? You can decide. It doesn't say he, she, or they. All right, and now what about they? It says towards the end, besides, they'll see how beautiful I am. Who are they? How many are they? Who are they? What's their background? Is their background different from I? So who's they? No definitive answer. You can only be right in different ways. You can't be wrong. There you go, 20 seconds on that. Who's they? Who's I? Who's they? Are they all male? Are they all female? Are they mixed? Mixed? Undecided gender? So, all right, let's just draw that together. If I was in a classroom now, or if I was with a group of people, I would be collecting answers that you're saying, and we will be talking about them, but it's a bit difficult to handle with 600 people, but that's the principle. So here we have a text, and we're making different meanings. In other words, the text is not an egg box, and our job is to take the eggs out. No. There might be eggs in the text, but our job might be to do something with the eggs, maybe make omelettes and scrambled eggs and cakes. Or there may be eggs, and there may also be some things in the box that are not the eggs, that we adults say that sometimes are in the box, if we're teachers. There may be all sorts of things. It just depends on what you think is in the box, who you think is they, who you think is I. So how about that? Now just then, I asked you some open-ended questions about that poem. I could have asked you some closed-ended questions, the ones much loved by people who set exams, who I would suggest are less interested in change than we are. I could ask, say, where do they send the person in the poem to go and eat? You would say, kitchen, and you would get 1 mark for that, because that's called, in England, retrieval. What you've been doing before, though, is interpretation, and that's much harder to mark. In fact, the more complex the text, the harder it is to mark interpretation. Too many different answers could all be right. It's a nightmare for examiners. So where have we got to? As we say, the meaning is a matter of interpretation. That's nearly a cliche in English, and yet it holds a fundamental truth. The person doing the interpretation is the reader. According to the great French scholar Roland Barthes, I am dead. Yes? The death of the author, he called it. I can write with any kind of intention I want, but I've got no guarantee that anyone will get that intention or make the meanings that I think I'm laying down in my writing. It's a tough thing for me to accept, but that's just tough on me. I don't think I'm dead. I think I do write with intention, some of which I make more explicit than others, as we shall see. But these books arrive into young people's hands through a complicated set of procedures to do with editing, publishing, book selling, critical articles, conversations between teachers, librarians, booksellers, and parents, many of whom are here now. That's you. Out of this set of procedures, let's call it a system, certain ways of meaning, ways of interpreting, ways of imagining emerge. We might call these patterns of interpretation. Stanley Fish, who wrote, "Is there a text in this class?" called them interpretative communities. Interpretative communities. So when we talk about drivers of change, I want to put books into those interpretative communities, some of whom, as I say, are you. Yes, you and your colleagues. So yes, let's praise books, let's praise writers. Thank you very much. Molte grazie. But please don't deny yourselves your presence and your power. You have the power to introduce books, set up certain kinds of discussion, just as we did with I Too Sing America, rather than others. You can avoid only asking questions like, where did the person in the poem have to go to eat? But instead you can ask questions that we or you don't necessarily know the answers to. Now, I once was asked to run a poetry workshop, and I came in with that poem, I Too Sing America. It was a group of 14-year-olds. As it happens, and you can debate whether this was relevant or not, they were all white, white-skinned, white. A group of 14-year-olds looked at the poem. I asked them first, is there anything in the poem that reminds you of anything that's ever happened to you or to someone you know? So I don't know the answer to that question, do I? They agreed with each other that this poem sounded like when their parents have friends over and they get sent to their room to have the food. It's a teenage thing, and they got quite angry about it. They said, that's just like us. And I kept quiet. I said nothing. Then I asked them if it reminded them of anything they'd ever read, seen on TV, a song, a film, or anything like that. They talked about some things that I didn't quite catch. Maybe I wasn't hip enough to keep up with it. And then one boy stood up and he said, I've got it. I've got it. This is like Martin Luther King and I Have a Dream. And the other students were very impressed. Remember, this is coming from them, not from me. They were very impressed. They asked him to explain. He did. Now, You or I could have approached that poem and that workshop differently. I could have come in with the Martin Luther King speech or any other materials, as we call them, from the civil rights era, or things to do with the Harlem Renaissance, or the poet Langston Hughes. You see his name at the top. I could have found the poem, that this poem is a reply to. After all, the poem says, I too sing America, too, as in also. So who was singing America before the I says that he or she is going to sing America too, too? A little bit of a joke there on the word too. We could have started there and only then read the poem, or we could have done what I did and asked my questions and then maybe brought out these materials later, or not. It's a poem. Perhaps it doesn't need materials. We heard some beautiful poems earlier. We didn't have any materials to understand them. We just enjoyed them, didn't we? But as they're young people, and if there isn't that boy there in the group, they might never have made the jump between the poem and Martin Luther King. What then? I'll leave that in the air for you to think about. So here I'm saying that the reading community is key to what we're talking about today and in this conference. The role of the leaders in the community, that's you, is crucial. I also think that the role has to take great care to not be dictatorial, bossy, know-all and censorious. We're in the world of education and reading. We're not in the street stopping someone from hitting someone else. We're not at this precise moment on a demonstration. I go on lots of demonstrations, but not in classrooms. For or against something, we want conversations to happen. We want people to hear each other's interpretations, and we want people to argue their point of view. If we think we're right about certain things, race, gender, the climate, inequality, war, justice, then we also have to believe that these matters can be argued about as well as demonstrated for, because that's what we're hired to do. And also because we think those ideas stand up to scrutiny and can be won on the grounds of fairness and justice for all. I want to read you now an example of what one teacher did, one of my students, with the book The Island by Armin Grieder. Maybe some of you know it, yes? Armin Grieder, The Island. Let me recommend it to you. Here's the publisher's summary of the book. When the people of the island discover a man and a tattered raft on their beach, they're reluctant to take him in. He doesn't look like them, but they cannot send him back to the sea where he will surely perish. Instead, they put him aside, but even that doesn't solve their problem. The Island is an astonishing and powerful picture book about refugees, xenophobia, multiculturalism, social politics, and human rights. It tackles big themes in subtle ways with a fable-like text and stunning artwork that will provoke discussion for upper primary and secondary school levels, so that's right the way through the British school system, about issues that remain so much part of our national discourse. After several weeks of looking at different picture books, doing different kinds of discussions, artwork, and so on, one thing the teacher, my student, did with The Island was do some role play. Yes, this is where the children act out a scene, not from the book, but as they imagine it. So one of the children took on the role of the innkeeper in the book, the person who runs the taverna, the innkeeper. While other children interviewed her, asked this girl the question. So she's in role, she's acting. So one child says, "Hello, innkeeper, do you regret what you did?" And the innkeeper says, "No, that man was terrible. I needed strong hands to make some dough for my customers, but he put people off their food. He didn't really belong." Next question. When you saw him coming over to the island on that broken boat, did you feel sorry for him? I didn't feel bad. I just don't understand why he would travel on that. He could have got a better one. Next question. What if he didn't have money for one? He's strong. He could have just made one. So that's the first bit. Then they switched roles. And this time we had a boy taking on the role of the man who's come off the boat. He's the refugee, yes? And the children ask him questions. "Hello, man. Why did you come to the island?" "I was just really lonely and I needed somewhere to go. I have nobody to care for me." "How did you feel when you arrived?" "When my boat pulled up, I saw loads of people. I thought they would be pleased to see me, but instead, they looked horrified." Did that reaction make you think about leaving? Maybe. I thought that maybe I could impress them so that I could stay and help them. Why do you think they hated you? They only hated me because of how I looked. If they'd bothered to get to know me, and if I showed them how strong I was, they probably would have liked me. But they were too selfish to give me a chance. So, the teacher talked about that. She says, by speaking in role, the children demonstrate their increasing sense of perspective and empathy towards others. Although the events presented through the book are a world away from the lives of these children, the discussion and meaning brought about by shared reading of the text allowed children to find relationships to the characters' feelings. So there's an example of how we can make meanings and create change as a result of a book and what a book offers. So it's not just the book, it's not just the teacher, it's what takes place. And that's just one example. I'll give you another example. I told a group of children aged about 9 or 10 the story, as we call it in English, Hansel and Gretel. You will know it under different names. I stopped the story when it got to the point where Hansel and Gretel not only realized that they won't be able to find the way home. You remember, this is the second time they've been abandoned in the forest. This is the time when the bread that Hansel had dropped as they walked along had been eaten by the birds. So now the children realize, yes, they have been abandoned and there's no way home. Now, if we tell this story plainly and seriously, this is a moment that is full of terror. The reason why I stopped this story at this point was that I asked the children to be Hansel or Gretel. They divided into pairs and improvised what they might say to each other and what they were thinking. Then I asked them to write down a monologue or dialogue based on this. One child wrote something I've never forgotten. She began her monologue with, "What have we done wrong?" Let's think about that for a moment. I've often thought about that story, what terrible conditions would give rise to parents abandoning their children like that. The story talks of this taking place in a time of famine, in German, from the Brüder Grimm, from the Brothers Grimm. I've often thought about the sense of abandonment. What I'd never thought about was that there would be or could be a sense in a reader that the children might think they'd done anything wrong. We call this, as adults, internalization or introjection. Just to be clear, the child reached this deep understanding through improvisation, through dialogue with her classmate, and then on her own reflecting on the story. Without knowing more about the child, I can't say here and now what kinds of experience led the child to this moment of realization. We might guess that it gave her insights into how we all operate as human beings in times of stress and trauma. Maybe you've had some other thoughts about that. The incredible step that child took to introject blame, self-blame, in that story, Hansel and Gretel. I'd never imagined that. So that was a child who taught me a child's view of that story, Hansel and Gretel, that in England, in Britain, sometimes we turn into what we call pantomime, which is not like Italian pantomime, but it's a sort of funny burlesque kind of show that we invent, and it can just dissipate. But here a child got to the power of the moment, and I would argue, important power of change. So the other challenge that I've been asked to meet is what I've done to drive change at a personal, social, or political level, yes? And I can say what I've done is write and perform my poems, and this is the important part, knowing that they will go through that system I talked about. That's you, librarians, teachers, booksellers, parents, all of you. I'm calling it a system, or mediating, as the jargon puts it, my books. And in all the years I've worked in schools, I've seen huge differences between what education has thought that the children they call disadvantaged, not very keen on the word, disadvantaged can do. Some have thought that all these children can do is be asked questions like, where was the person in the poem, it's still there, sent to eat their dinner? Yes, some people think that's the only thing you can do with disadvantaged children. I don't know why they think disadvantaged children can only think like that. I've never figured that out. And some have thought that the only way to take those children to a higher level is to give them knowledge about a poem before you read a poem, and then figure out what you think about it. We did it the other way around, didn't we? So some have thought you could do something like this. Instead, you could take Shakespeare's play, The Tempest, to a primary school in one of these disadvantaged areas with a diverse population. At every level in the school, the children could take from The Tempest what suited them. Magic islands, magicians, wicked plotters, lonely daughters, if you know the play, rebels, slaves, slavery, colonization, revenge, redemption, and so on. At all different levels, they could take it. So instead of reducing what the children could do or might do, instead you expand and say, this play, written 400 years ago, is exploring themes that are alive now, that are relevant to us with our diverse backgrounds at all different levels, whether we're 3 years old or 11 years old. It was what we call a primary school. So now I thought maybe if I've got time, I would read you one or two things and say what it was that I hoped might happen from reading the poems. But as I'm trying to make clear to you, I'm not in charge. Yes? I'm in charge when I write it and putting it on the paper, but after that, no, none at all. So I wrote a book that came out yesterday, as it happens. That's rather nice, isn't it? So a book came out yesterday. Oh, thank you. So it's called Out of This World. And so in this book, Michael Rosen goes on various kinds of time travel, goes tripping around, and one bit of time travel I went was to my mother. So it goes like this. 100 years ago, 100, yes, 100, long before anything I know, so many years, so far away, so long before now, so far away from today. But hey, stop, my mother, you were born in 1919. It's not as far away as it seems. In my head, you talk. You tell stories from 100 years ago. These things I know. I can travel there through time. There are pictures. Here you are, a baby. A war has ended, the war they call the Great War, the war to end all wars, and you're a baby. People say this is a baby who will grow up in a world full of life and light, peace and hope. But will you? You live in a tiny flat that overlooks a market. You hear the street cries from the street below. These are the first things you know. Your mother and father are a mama and a tata. They talk to you in Yiddish. Schlaf, kleine Kindler. Sleep, little child. Here you are, a girl. In the school photo, you've learnt English. You frown at the camera. One of your teachers stands behind you. She looks tired. You're in a class of 38 children. Class 6, Roman numerals. Class 6. There's a boy in a striped jacket and tie sitting up straight. He's trying to be good. There's a boy in a black jacket with his mouth open. He looks shocked. Some of the girls have ribbons in their hair. Do you want ribbons in your hair? One boy has tucked his chin into his chest. He's angry or sad. Behind you is the wall of your school, Globe Road School. It's still there. The school, the wall. I go there. I stand in the school. I touch the wall. I tell the children, my mother went here 100 years ago. And when she left, they painted her name on a board in gold letters. On a board in gold letters. My mother, Connie Isakovsky. I imagine it, the gold letters. Connie Isakovsky. I tell the children this. I tell them how my mother's mother used to take her to that market and argue with the man selling chickens, while men in black coats and women in scarves walked by, and how you, my mother, didn't like it, how your mother argued with the man selling chickens. And when it was icy on the streets, you, my mother, used to see the great horses pulling the carts, slipping on the road and falling, and how scared you were. Great horses, legs spread out, flat on the icy road, panic in their eyes. Oh, and your grandfather made cream cheese and yogurt and sweet silky smatana. And that's why you eat sour milk now. Oh, yes. Oh, no. Ooh. How could you? How could you eat sour milk? We watch you sipping that sour milk going, lovely sour milk. How could you? And our father tells the story about you, a story about harvest festival at your school. They asked you to bring in flowers. Flowers, you thought? Flowers? We haven't got flowers at home. I haven't got flowers. I can't get flowers, you thought, and you were ashamed. You were ashamed that you were the girl without flowers, and you thought you'd get into trouble because you had no flowers. So you did the naughtiest thing you had ever done, the naughtiest thing ever. On the way to school, you walked through the little park in front of the museum, and you grabbed a flower from the flower bed. You took that flower into school so you didn't get into trouble, but afterwards you felt so bad, so very bad, so very, very bad that you'd stolen a flower from the park and you never forgot it. You never, ever forgot it. Now here's another photo. This time you're older and you stand at the top of a hill, you face the wind, your head thrown back, the wind blowing in your hair blowing behind you, one leg forwards, one leg back. You look like a mountaineer, a climber, a hiker, a fell walker. You look so happy and proud that you're out in the wind and the wild, and nothing can stop you. Nothing can slow you down. You're going up and up and up and on and on and on. And when we sit in the kitchen, you tell us stories. How there were some horrible people who hated our people because we are who we are. And they hated that you are who you are. So you and your friends, the girls from your school, stood in the street to say you wouldn't be frightened by them. You wouldn't be scared. You wouldn't let them get away with it. And you were proud that you did that you stood up to them, that you and your friends stuck together. And when you tell me this, you're still proud, aren't you? And here's a photo of you and your friends all smiling and laughing on a beach, proud of who you are and who you're becoming. And you say that it was about then you saw our father playing table tennis. And you say you thought, he looks nice. And we all laugh. Thank you. I've got to keep an eye on the time, so you can see, you can imagine, my intention behind that poem was to explore the life of a woman who lived from 1919 to 1976, but the first years of her life, to think what was her childhood like and her teenage years, in the hope that people like you could take that and ask children, ask teenagers to explore their mums. It's quite easy for us to ignore mums in the kind of culture that we belong to, so I wanted to put my mother on a plinth, not because she was particularly special at that age, but what she lived through at that time, quite ordinary in its own way. And so there is a way in which poems, when you write like that, I have in the back of my mind people like you taking those and using them as enablers, if you like. So if we've got time, I'll read you one or two more. I'll keep my eye on how we're going. So here we go. So as you heard, my mother had this other language. So I wasn't brought up bilingual, as some of you are lucky enough to do, but there were lots of words. So I could teach this to you as well. My mum can speak two languages, and sometimes she mixes them up. She doesn't say don't moan, she says don't kvetch. She doesn't say don't slurp your soup, she says don't chup. She doesn't say don't burp, she says don't graps. She doesn't say don't fart, she says don't fots. And when I have wrinkles in my socks, she says it looks like I've put my feet through a pile of bagels. So she says, take the bagels out of your socks. So I sing it all back to her. Don't kvetch, don't chup, don't graps, don't fots. Take the bagels out of your socks. So we all sing it. See how we can get on. Don't kvetch, you say. Don't kvetch. It's a kf at the beginning, yes? Very Slavonic. Don't chup, so we've got a ch sound. Quite difficult if you're not German. Here we go. Don't chup, don't chup. Don't graps, don't graps. Don't fots, don't fots. Take the bagels out of your socks. Take the bagels out of your socks. See whether we can do it together. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Don't kvetch, don't chup, don't graps, don't fots. Take the bagels. Very good. You're fluent in Yiddish. Well done. Very good. Lovely. So now, my father came to England from another country. My father's mother came to England from another country, but my father's father stayed behind. So my dad had no dad here, and I never saw him at all. One day in spring, some things arrived, a few old papers, a few old photos, and oh yes, a hulky, bulky, thick-checked jacket that belonged to the man I would have called Grandad, the man who stayed behind. But I kept that jacket, and I wore it, and I wore it, and I wore it, till it wore right through at the back. So there was a little mystery about my father's father, who stayed in America, never came for my dad, and I went to America to find Morris Rosen, my father's father, and found him in a graveyard, and he was in the Jewish Workmen's Cemetery in Boston, Massachusetts, and on his grave it said, beloved by his children. And my second cousin said, that's quite strange, isn't it? A ship in a bottle sails down the mantelpiece. A ship in a photo brings Grandma here. Ships they talk and talk about. Ships far and near. How did the ship get in the bottle? Ships by night and by day. Ships they talk and talk about. Why did Grandma come to stay? Who put the ship in the bottle? Ships that they once knew. Ships they talk and talk about. Why didn't Grandad come too? When did the ship go in the bottle? Ships sailing far and near. Ships they talk and talk about. Who else didn't come here? Who broke the ship in the bottle? Can anyone tell me why? Ships they talk and talk about. And why did the baby die? So that's about mysteries and wanting me to, I think about the mysteries, but also inviting children, any reader of that, to think about the mysteries in our families, and they're always mysteries, which is a bit like the previous one as well. When they do war, they forget how to count. They forget how to count, and that's how they do it. They come, they kill, they go. No numbers, no names. They disappear them. They vanish them. That's how they do it. They come, they kill, they go. And it's worth it, they say. It's worth it, believe us. If you forget how to count, if you forget the numbers, if you forget the names, if you forget the faces. When they do war, they forget how to count. They forget how to count, and that's how they do it. But we're counting. Watch us. We're counting. Listen, we're counting, and we count. So for those of you who don't know, don't speak English very much, count can mean two things. It can mean count as 1, 2, 3, 4, but also count in the sense of being important. So that last word is a pun. So if you write a poem like that, and as I say, you give it to the system that I've described, that's for you to chew over with children, with the child at home, in a class, in a group, in a youth group, wherever. What did Michael Rosen mean that you can't, investigate it, think about it, because there's lots of gaps in the poem. So just as there were gaps in, if you like, with my father's father, then I quite often think these poems, they're full of gaps, and that we can ask questions and find our way in them. Okay, so I did a lot of family research. My father, when I was growing up, would say, do you know, Michael and Brian, my brother, I had 2 uncles in France at the beginning of the war, and when people said the war, someone of my age, they meant the Second World War. So he said, you know, I had 2 uncles in France at the beginning of the war, and they weren't there at the end. And we'd look at him and say, what do you mean? I was about 10 years old. I'd say, what do you mean they weren't there at the end? And he'd say, I don't know. I don't know what happened to them. Maybe they died in the camps. So that phrase, the camps, when I was 10, it meant nothing. It just didn't have any meaning to it. We didn't have a television, and my parents didn't explain what happened during the Second World War in that way. The camps were not known as a phrase, yes? And so I did lots of research. And just to cut the story short, I found that these 2 uncles of my father's, one was called Oscar, the other was called Martin, and they were both arrested in France, one in Nice, where was occupied by Italy, Nice, and the other one in northwest France in a little village called Saint-Hermine. And I discovered that Oscar and his wife Rachel were deported and marched from Paris on what are called in French convoys to Auschwitz, and they never came back. And I explored this. My father didn't know anything about this, but I found it out through research, which is another way to think about writing, that you can go from research into writing documentary, but also you can write poems. And I found out that because Oscar and Rachel were in Nice, and Nice was occupied by Italy, the Jews were protected by Italy and refused to hand over Jews to Adolf Eichmann, who you've heard of, and they refused. And so Jews were making their way to Nice thinking they would be protected, because they were saying in French, "Nous n'irons pas à Pichipoy." Pichipoy is a nonsense word that Jews invented to mean that horrible place over there. "Nous n'irons pas à Pichipoy." And so many Jews secretly, clandestinely, made their way to Nice, where they were protected, and an Italian philanthropist called Angelo Donati said, "I've requisitioned some boats, and I will get you to North Africa in a matter of days." But tragically, at this moment, the Allied forces, that's Britain, America, defeated Italy, and at that moment, the Nazis then invaded Nice, and Jews who were finding asylum and refuge, a theme that interests me very much to this day, who were there, they were sitting, as we say in English, sitting ducks. That means they were easy targets. Sitting ducks is a saying in English. And they were sitting there, and so they were arrested, tortured, and taken to Auschwitz. Oscar, the one I've mentioned, was a clock mender. So I did that thing that writers can do where we empathize. What we do is we go, well, what would it have been like to have been Oscar? And so I talked to Oscar, just as those children talked to the innkeeper and the man in that book. We can do that when we write. And that's very important if we're thinking about what motivates people and how they were thinking at a given time. So this is what I wrote. "Dear Oscar, what did you think as you and Rachel sat on the floor of the cattle truck as it left Paris? Did you think of the watches and clocks you had mended? Did you think of the tiny springs and wheels, you with your magnifying glass in your eye, poring over the works so that a monsieur or a madame could tell the time correct to the exact second? Did you think of the smell of the sea and the push of a boat against the waves, how you and Rachel would stand on the deck, the wind in your faces as you sailed away? Did you look through the gaps in the slats on the side of the truck? Did you see farmers in fields, women selling clothes in a market? Did you call out? Did you push your hands through the gaps? Did the night come creeping in? Did you see a light from a window where people sat and ate their evening meal? Did you see in the dark horror on Rachel's face? Did she see horror on yours? Did you shut her eyes? Did she shut yours? Thinking of children who shut their eyes to make the world go away. And then behind your eyelids, did you think of the cattle that had once stood in the truck as they were taken away to the slaughterhouse? So that's an example of a particular kind of empathy writing that we can ask children to do in a variety of ways, all sorts of conditions, all sorts of places. Yes? And if I read you this to finish, about migrants now. So this is a book called On the Move, Poems About Migration, with drawings by Quentin Blake in a very different style from the drawings he usually does. And so this is about all refugees, all migrants, and I see those as being part of my family's experience, not mine, but part of my family's experience. And so it says, you know, you got to go, no time to grieve, you just got to leave. Get away from the pain, on the move again. Take the train, catch a plane, make the trip in a ship. Take a hike, ride a bike, go by car, going far. Use your feet on the street, get stuck in a truck. Then you arrive, and you're alive. Yes, you arrive, you're alive. what you leave behind won't leave your mind. What you leave behind won't leave your mind, but home is where you find it. Home is where you find it. Home is where you find it. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.